Hey guys, you are listening to Insights with Kathleen,
Please join us while we share our insights and experiences
with the hope to inspire you to look inside of yourself.
for the answers you already have.
As with all information we receive,
Take what speaks to you
and leave the rest.
Welcome back, everyone.
Hey guys, how are you doing? How are you doing today?
Sherry and I are still working on our whole marker. When do we start? When do we
I know.
breathe?
Because after the pointing fiasco, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just let her talk and then I'll just say my thing. And it kind of, it worked.
Kinda works,
yeah.
Well, thank you for tuning back in.
Yes, thank you.
So,
guys.
Sherry, last week we talked about as above, so below.
Right, we
right?
did.
And where we touched on that some of the things that we as a soul have come to, let me see if I can speak words right.
What are words?
So as a soul, we're embodied in this lifetime, and there are things that we wanted to experience so that we can evolve as a soul.
Right.
So we talked about that. We talked about how our personality traits, those go with us. They don't get wiped away when we
good.
pass on, right?
I always think of like the psalm, like, all right, I'm just very holier than thou. And like, we just don't have any, like our personalities or sense of humor or anything.
Nope. So those are all intact.
That's nice to hear.
Yes. And if we didn't get the opportunity to fully experience those experiences,
Yeah.
it's a little redundant, but you get what I'm saying. While we are embodied, then we work on those experiences in spirit.
Ah,
right?
okay.
So just as a quick little wrap up on that, and then I think too, you had asked me some questions about the spirit and what happens when they pass on and things like that. And we did say that that's a whole nother podcast, but that is a whole nother podcast.
Is this the podcast?
I don't know, but I hear that you have something on your mind.
Yes, I do. Hey guys, Sherry here from Insights with Kathleen. Kind of something that came to mind for me, and I wasn't going to share it, but I was like, maybe this could help some people. I had an aunt of mine recently pass away, and the family's grieving, I'm grieving, all of these different things, and I just thought it would be interesting to talk about. We talked about last week about the soul and passing on, and I guess for me, what I'm trying to say is kind of that transition. Like, how does death tie into spirituality? Like, we already kind of talked about it, but I guess I wanted to see it more in the sense of, I don't know.
All right. Well, first of all, our deepest condolences to you and your family for the passing of your aunt. And that is the thing, right? So a lot of people who get into spirituality outside of the organized religion, some people have these conflicting, thoughts about well, do I give her condolences? Do I not give her condolences? Because really all that your aunt had done is she just has a change of location. Right. So her experience is no longer embodied, but she's in spirit, which means for those who are still embodied, we miss that experience, that interaction of her spirit in her body showing up for us,
Right.
so that we can touch,
Right.
and feel, and smell, and hug, and whatever, right? But I still want to offer condolences because it's a transition that's really difficult for those who are still embodied,
Right.
to process through, right?
Yeah.
And there's a grieving process, and we've talked about here many times about being in touch with our feelings, and grief is part of our feelings.
Yes.
Right. So right now I'm just going to talk a little bit for the human.
Right.
Right. And then we'll talk a little bit about the transition into spirit and what that may look like. Okay.
Right.
So, respect your feelings, respect you, respect your human, and don't bury the grief.
Yeah.
Feel the grief. Go through the grief, because it's going through it that you're embracing life, you're embracing you,
Right.
and that you stay whole. Because if you bury grief, it just can make you sick later.
Yeah.
Right? So, again, deepest condolences to you and your family.
Thank you.
I know it's scary.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the other part of grief, and that's the other part of when we have someone close to us past, or even when we hear on the news about somebody getting killed or somebody whatever, and oh my goodness, it's so horrible, right?
Right.
Because it's scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're all faced with our own mortality as a human being.
Yes.
You notice I said mortality as a human being.
Yes. Yeah. I noticed that. That was purposeful.
Yes, it was. Because the spirit that resides inside of this human bodysuit, if you will, lives forever. Even though that spirit may exit the body, nothing happens to that spirit or that soul.
Right.
Because then that soul transitions into the next phase of their existence. I liked it. The other day I was watching some program and it was about people who have had these who had died and was brought back together. So they've had these different spiritual encounters, if you will, as they passed on. So this really, kind of relates.
Right.
And
Yes. It does.
And I find it's really funny.
Yeah.
That I just watched it like 2 days ago.
Huh.
And how
serendipitous. Wow.
Yes. And how much in sync, right?
Yes. Yes. I can see that.
So what was nice about that is when I listened to the people, they all have similar stories.
Oh.
Okay. And so if different people from different parts of the world are having similar experiences when they're passing, when they actually are clinically dead.
Yeah.
Right. And of course people here are trying to revive them.
Right.
They're having these like really delicious experiences out of body.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I know. I always find those so interesting.
Yes, because a lot of them will talk about how they felt at peace. They don't feel any physical pain because there's nothing physical to feel. Right. How they feel this warmth, this love, this overabundance of love and just being wrapped up in it. Some will see light. Some will feel a pull, and you feel this pull, and then you see the light, or, there's all these different things that happen. So, but what we do know is that when we do transition from being in a human body and going back to the ocean, back to that ocean of spirit, is that for the soul that's making that transition, it can be a very beautiful, peaceful one. And there are others that your team, your spirit team, we've talked about that a little bit, right? Yeah. Your spirit team is there to help with that transition, to help with the confusion, because there is a little bit of a confusion. Right. Like, what's happening to me? What happened to me? Wait a minute. I just was feeling all this pain. I was just afraid of something, and now I don't feel anything. What's going on? Right. But wait, maybe I see myself and I'm flying above my body.
I have heard that from a good amount of people, like when I've seen documentaries.
Yes. And then, so there's this little level of confusion as like the human mind is probably still processing and letting go, and we're thinking in that way. Right. Right. And then that's where like your spirit team comes in and helps you with that transition. And that's when things are running very smoothly, right? There's always exceptions to everything. I'm just going to put that out there.
I can imagine.
Always exceptions, but let's just say that things go the way they're supposed to go. Right. Right. So we are greeted by something familiar. Now, let's just say you don't have any family members who are deceased, right? Right. Oh, my goodness, I'm an orphan. I don't know any of my family, right? And what I die, what's going to happen then? Like, look, I'm not going to have anybody. Oh. That's not true. Yeah. That's not true, because as you're living in this life, you have a spirit team that's still there with you, that's signed up to support you in your experience, in your journey here as a human being. Right. And that's who's going to be on that other side to welcome you and to usher you over. If you have a spiritual connection with somebody special, a lot of people, it's Jesus. Some it's the angels, like Archangel Michael or Raphael or Gabriel. Some it's Muhammad. Some is Kuan Yin, or some Indian gods, or, so it doesn't matter, because the world is big. The universe is bigger.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Right? And there are these loving energies that we relate to that gets us through the daily human experience. That is who you build that relationship with. That's who's going to be there
Right.
For you to relate to and to move on. And they will feel familiar.
Right.
So when you're passing over, you'll be like, I do feel this warmth. And wait, this energy feels so familiar to me. And you're going to want to go to it.
Yeah.
So that's also why I say, too, that it's really important to embrace and love all aspects of yourself. Because when we do pass, if we don't have some level of worthiness in ourselves and some level of feeling loved, that being faced with that amount of love, it may take a while just to get your breath, so to speak.
Right. That makes sense.
All right. So did you have something more specific? So that's just my little overview.
Thank you for the specifics. I guess for me, thank you for that. Honestly, I guess for me, I'm like kind of torn into two, right? I'm really into spirituality, so I have like some level of understanding, like, okay, she's just in a different place, but I guess it's my human that I'm working with, because I'm like, well, she's fine, like it's fine, and like kind of like what you were saying, like the process and just not bearing the emotions and how important that is.
Yes. And I've lost many people in my lifetime that I've been pretty close to, or just things that were very shocking.
Right.
A relative who just suddenly had passed away due to a motorcycle accident.
Right.
And maybe I wasn't that close to that relative, but that's like my very first experience of a shock value, right?
Right.
Somebody else who was kind of like a brother to me, to hang out with my brother, and they would all get together and fix cars. Two of them actually died in a very bad, tragic car accident.
Oh.
That was really hard and scary.
Yeah.
Right? And that was before I was really, really engaged in spirituality, though I did still have a spiritual life.
Right.
And it comes back to that sense of mortality.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
My human mortality now is in question, that, this life is very fragile.
Right.
I need to respect that. I want to embrace every day, because we just seemingly don't know when things are going to change.
Right.
Though on a soul level, we really do know. It's just on a mind human level, we kind of disengage with that.
Right.
Right. Which is fine, because that's natural. It's how it's supposed to be.
Right.
My mom passed away, and of course, that's many years after these young men had passed, right? And it's interesting because we knew she was going to pass. Like we knew her time was limited. Like she had a short window.
Right.
Because she had cancer, lung cancer, and the doctor's like, there's nothing we could do for you. You probably have about 6 months.
Right.
So she could have allowed her humanness to just roll over and just give up.
Right.
Oh, I'm going to die anyway. Why should I even bother?
Right.
But instead, she's like, you know what? I don't like it when they do visitations and people look down at your corpse and says, oh, doesn't she look so good? She goes, I'm not even in there, and I don't want people looking at me.
Yeah.
Okay, Mom. I want to be cremated. Okay, Mom. It's a choice. Okay. All right, we'll do that. She goes, and by golly, I don't want the visitation, which I find really funny, because visitation and funeral is not for the dead person.
Right.
It's for the living.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's for the living, to help support them and to help, them feel better and less afraid.
Right.
To help them in their grief, their loss, because the whole world's changing now, and that makes things unbalanced. That you're questioning everything.
Right.
Right? So my mom, God bless her, because this is the kind of woman she was. She's like, take a charge. She goes, no visitation for my dead body. Why don't they come see me now while I'm still alive?
Okay. I thought you meant like no visitations while she's sick. And I was like,
oh. No, I'm so sorry. So visitation is like after somebody passes,
right.
The family will hold visitations so that friends and other people could come say goodbye and then give their condolences and support to those who are left behind.
Right.
Left behind in the sense who are still alive, and those family members who are still here grieving their loss, their perceived loss of that individual.
Right.
And it's real. I'm not here to diminish any grief. I mean, because grief is real.
Yeah.
And so, but for my mom and I, because we had shared this spiritual connection, that she's always known that I've had certain things, right? So like when I was really little, I was at a neighbor's house, and I'm like, I could kind of smell and taste roast beef and mashed potatoes. I wonder if we're having that for dinner tonight. And this is at 10 o'clock in the morning. So I asked the neighbors, hey, can I call my mommy? And they're like, sure, honey. Mom, are we having roast beef and mashed potatoes for dinner tonight? Yeah, how did you know? Because I could smell it and taste it. I haven't even started cooking it yet, Kathleen. Sorry, Mom. So she got an inkling that there was a little something there in me, right?
Yeah.
And then again, we shared the story about my grandmother, who we had, I've never met, and her spirit's in the house, and my mom sensed it too, and on and on. So my mom received this diagnosis, and though she was starting to feel a little overwhelmed by it, because that's real too. It's not like she was this totally stoic person and like, hey, I'm okay. Yeah, I only got 6 months to live. Oh, let's go have a party. She wasn't anything like that, you know. She was worried. She was worried that maybe she wasn't trying enough treatments to try to get better, because she wasn't going to do any, considering that the success rate was so low, right? So she just wasn't going to do anything. Then she tried something, and then it made her face break out. It's the first time her face ever broke out. So then she's crying. Oh. And I'm consoling her, and then she lets it all out, right? Well, your dad and this and that, and I'm like, hold on, take a breath. You're not going to be here anymore. What do you care? And she goes, you're right. And I said, yeah. And I said, Mom, we have this connection. Because also my mom, I don't know if I ever shared this story.
No.
And I'm sorry I'm babbling on here, but thanks for listening. So my mom, at the time, we didn't have cell phones, and the way that the phone service worked is that you had to pay for long distance, or you had to pay for a special plan for unlimited long distance. And parents were retired, living up north, and she wasn't paying for that plan anymore. Right. Though I had the long distance plan. So she'd want to talk to me, and instead of doing the ring-a-ding-ding, and then I'd have to call her back after 2 rings or something, she would just go in her mind, in her heart's mind, Kathleen, call me. Kathleen, call me. Kathleen, call me. Kathleen, call me. And then I can psychically pick her up. And there's been a couple of times where I've been in the middle of something, and I'm like, just a minute, Mom, I can't do it right now. Get there. Just hold on. And I'm just sending that back through the heart. Yeah. And then when I finally called her, she goes, what took you so long? Sorry. Sorry, Mom, I was in the middle of something, you know. So, that's so funny. So I told her, I said, with that psychic connection that we have here embodied, right? Golly, Mom, I can't wait to see what that's going to be like when you pass. Not that I'm asking you to pass anytime soon, but how cool would that be to experiment with that?
True.
Right? And then she lit up. She's like, yeah, that would be kind of cool.
Leave it to you to put a spin on this, because I've never heard this spin on this, but I feel like it was so comforting and so nice, I feel like, for her.
Yes, you're right. It did. It calmed her down. It refocused her, rebalanced her, helped with her perspective. I mean, because listen, we can only control what we can control. Right. And death is not one of those things that we can necessarily control. It's going to happen. Right. Whether it's happening to us or to someone else. Right. Right. And so there's a level of acceptance. It doesn't mean you give up, right? If there is an opportunity that some treatment or some changes in our lives can affect a longer time on this planet, then by golly, go for it. Right. But sometimes there is nothing. Right. So still embrace life. I encourage anyone listening, do that. Yes, whether you're sick or not, you should be embracing life every day anyway. Yeah. Because again, much like what your aunt, right? No one knew. It was unexpected.
It was very sudden, yeah.
So that's why you always want to embrace life. You want to tell those people that you care about how much you care about them. Right. This is why we want to treat each other with respect and love, because we don't really know. Right. Yeah, no, I feel like for me, it just put a lot of things in perspective, because I'm very much the person who's like, I got a 6-year plan, a 10-year plan. I'm mapping everything out. And I think when I did hear that news, it kind of brought things into perspective of oh, yeah, be in flow, be in the moment, and kind of like what you said, tell people you love them and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And, and there's nothing wrong with having a little survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, my aunt's dead. I'm still here. That's kind of scary too. Wait a minute. When am I dying? Oh, do I know when I'm dying? I don't know when I'm dying. I hope I don't die tomorrow. Wait a minute. I don't want to die tomorrow. I got to return something to the store.
You know my favorite thing that people would tell me? They're just like, okay, so Sherry, and I'm like, yes. Like when I die, when I die, I have a designated person to clear my search history. Like who's going to update the social media? Who's going to clear the search history? Someone's got to do it. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, you have to, even the incognito, which I just find like very funny.
That is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Not a thought in my mind.
Yeah, I'm like, I didn't think to do that, but.
Though I do like that my daughter always tells me, Mom, please, you have to put together a plan because I'm not going to know what to do when you die. And I said, honey, don't you worry about it because I'm going to outlive you.
I know.
And she goes, okay, I like that better. I'm like, okay, good.
I think we did have a talk about that, and I was like, yeah, about you. And you're like, yeah, I'm gonna be here for a very, very long time. What about you? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be here for a pretty long while too, it seems.
All right. So I do have a neighbor who's very sweet, and he is very sick, and it looks like his soul is making himself ready to disengage from this life so that he can pass on and move on to his next phase.
Right.
You know, life after life.
Right. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't claim that. Somebody else. I got that from someone else. But I'm going to own it right now. Life after life.
I'm going to own it. The great Kathleen said.
Right now. You know, so as a soul, and we've talked about this too, and I don't know if this is helpful, but as a soul, before we are embodied, we make a general sketch of what it is that we want to experience. Right. And as part of that sketch, it's selecting the family you're being born into.
Right.
And your soul's already had conversations with all of those souls that you're going to meet with or be a part of the family with. Mm-hmm. And all of those souls have just decided, hey, these are the experiences I want to have. Oh, cool, because I want to have that experience over on this side. Oh, cool, and then I want to have this experience. Okay, this all works out. So
it sounds like a group project.
I know, it is. So whether you agree with me or not, you did pick to be who you are, where you are, who you were born to, when you were born, even the name that you have. You, on a soul level, had picked all of that. Your birth date, the time of the day that you were born, where, the location, all of it, because it all matters because there's all these other influences that come with it.
Right.
That is totally like several podcasts worth of information, right? To break down everything that I'm saying right now. So you also sketch out all these different exit points.
Thank you for talking about that. Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't know. It's like a weird feeling that I get, right? And, it's not like anything that like suicide or anything like that. It's nothing like that. But I do know what you mean when you're saying like different exit points, like where you could have died, but you didn't. Because I've like had incidences where like I've almost been in multiple car accidents where people were really, really close, but they just missed me. And I was like, ooh, that could have been bad. Anyway,
la 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 la, I'm off with life. La, la, la. Yes. So we have all these different potential exit points, and depending on where we are in our soul's journey, our soul could decide at any point in time to take any one of those exit points. So again, just know that there is a higher power. There's a higher purpose. There is more happening here than our tiny little human minds can wrap around, right? Right. Even more than my mind can wrap around. Right. And that's okay, because that's part of the mystery of it all.
Right, because if we knew it all, it wouldn't be so exciting on this planet.
It'd be really boring.
Very boring.
It's kind of like gambling, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Why do people gamble? They gamble because it's a little exciting. They gamble because they don't really know. They kind of know what the odds are, and those are the odds, but I don't know, but I'm going to try it.
Right.
Against all odds, and then if I win, whoa.
Right.
It's the same thing.
I get what you mean.
Yeah. Did this help you?
This did help me.
Do you have anything else you want clarity on or dive into or to share?
No, I feel like you covered everything extensively. So
She's just tired of hearing me talk.
I love hearing her talk on the record. But no, thank you so much. Yeah, I think you covered everything. And it was nice that you included the story about your mom. I liked that just because, like, you know, whenever I think of funerals and death, I'm just sad. But like for you, I mean, obviously you're like sad and stuff, but you just find a way to spin it into this higher perspective that feels so light.
Yes, and I'll offer you this other piece too. And I learned this way before my mom passed, and this is probably why I'm able to spin it in that way. I was 18 years old, and I'm in Florida living with my cousin, and it's kind of funny because, and I've said before, you know, the trauma that I've had as a kid, and trying to work through that, and those were really some dark times for me.
Right.
And I needed to get out of my parents' home and somewhere else. I couldn't afford to go get my own apartment. So my mom worked with me, and my aunt agreed to take me in down in Florida, where then I lived with her and my Uncle Red for a little bit. And then I went in and moved in with my cousin and got a job in downtown with her. Not at her company, but she helped me, you know, get a ride down there, and then I did some footwork and got my first job ever. Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, that wasn't my brother paying me. Yay. So I went there to go basically connect with me.
Right.
And heal up. And I spent a lot of time alone, and I did get involved in a little drama club my aunt was a part of. And
nice.
So I had all these fun experiences. But then I knew it was time to go home. There was just something in me that said, okay, you need to put in your notice, your notice to quit your job. And then I planned, okay, after I quit, I'm going to spend 2 weeks just doing nothing, just hanging out, and then I'll head home.
Right.
The very last day that I was to work was Halloween. And that's when my uncle died of a massive heart attack.
Oh, Uncle Red?
Uncle Red passed away. Explosive heart attack. And it was shocking,
right.
You know. And my cousin Linda had, I guess, received a call and went, but left a message for me through somebody else. So she didn't even call me. So somebody else contacted me, asked me to go pick up her daughter at the daycare and take her daughter trick-or-treating, but don't tell her daughter anything that had happened, right?
Yeah.
So then the events play out. But then as the events are playing out, after the funeral and all of that stuff, which, by the way, the funeral was just, I mean, like, for the living, it was so touching.
Oh.
My other cousin, he was a police officer, and they had a full-on police procession for my uncle, and they even stopped at different intersections, and that just brought so much comfort. You know, you wouldn't think it, but it does. So even to this day, when I go to funerals and that happens, I start getting teary-eyed because I think of this funeral.
Right.
So as I'm sitting there after everyone leaves, my aunt is telling me how grateful she is that I am with her for this next week when no one's around because it's the hardest.
Yeah.
Right? And we start talking. And I said, Aunt Shirley, I know it was sudden. I said, but think of all of these beautiful moments that you received as a parting gift. What are you talking about? Okay. You and Uncle Red have not been happy for a long time. And it's probably because his heart was hurting him and it changed his behavior a little bit and made him very grumpy.
Right.
The weekend prior to his death, he had taken his granddaughter, who was about 3 years old, and they went out to the flea market. And he came back with this gigantic grocery bag of beads. Oh. And he was giddy. And they were joking. Oh, yeah, Shelley, tell him what we saw on the side of the road. Somebody had a flat of the gum and no foo-foo. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And apparently it was a flat tire. And he had, I guess, no air. But it was just a funny saying, and Shelley would crack up. Yeah. So then he instructs me to go through the beads with Shelley and untangle them. In the meantime, him and my aunt are in the kitchen making homemade pasta from scratch. Ooh. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Back when I could eat pasta. So, and I could see them from the living room, and they're smiling, and they're flirting, and, you know, it was a beautiful time. The four of us just had this beautiful moment in time. And it was the lightest I had seen him since I had been there those 4 months.
Wow.
I almost wasn't able to go because they were having issues. But then finally, she relented and I was there. So I called my aunt back to that moment. And then she was able to embrace that as a good, blessed moment.
Right.
Right. So then, we fast forward to my mom's passing. And you know how we said before, my mom wanted people to come see her while she was still alive.
Right.
So we threw her what she likes to call an Irish wake. I don't know how Irish it really was, but we invited people to come visit my mom. We had a party. We had food. My dad had built a wagon, so he pulled it around with his tractor and gave like little hay rides. And, we had music and there was a pool for people to swim. And my mom would have to go in and take a nap because she'd tire out.
Right.
But that's okay. And it was threatening to rain, but it didn't rain. It didn't rain until my sister and I cleared the last piece of silverware out of the tent we had in the yard. We had everything cleared out. Then the sky opened up, like torrential pouring opened up. And it didn't rain for very long, but it was a good rain. And then we happened to look out at the back porch. I'm looking out here like I'm looking out the back porch.
Back porch. I see.
At my parents' house. They live up in the mountains. And there's 2 double rainbows.
Oh.
And wildlife came out of the forest.
Wow.
So there was a fox and a deer. And my mom got to see it all. And that's like all up her alley.
Yeah.
And we were like, wow, what a beautiful blessing.
Right.
To wrap up a beautiful day, a fellowship.
That's beautiful. And
that's something that I can carry in my heart as a surviving human.
Right.
Again, on purpose, surviving human.
Mm-hmm.
So that I can cherish that as a beautiful memory that keeps me warm and keeps her presence near me.
Right.
So that I can look back on that and I could talk to her about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we pass, Sherry, when we leave, exit this body and we go on to life in spirit,
mm-hmm.
our family members, those people that we're close to, they don't ever really leave us. They're just a conversation away.
Yes. Yes, they are.
Yeah.
In more ways than one. And I feel like that's a podcast in and of itself. If you get me going, I won't shut up about it.
Well, is there anything you want to share about your aunt?
I guess I kind of felt the same way too. I loved her energy and her vibe. And I guess like 2 weeks before it kind of reminds me of like your uncle, right? Because I hadn't really talked to her too much, but she actually randomly gave me a phone call. And I was on the phone with you and I was like, hey, hold on, let me just take this call. And it was my aunt. And I was like, oh. And she's like, I didn't think you'd answer, but hey. And we were catching up and it was great. And she was laughing. And then 2 weeks later, I heard this news. But I was like, that was just like I'm glad I got to at least talk to her before then. Like I got to hear her laugh and how she's doing and
mm-hmm.
all these things. And it just, it was nice because it was so out of the blue for her to call me.
See, and she probably as the soul had put that order in
to
make sure that she reached out, and on some level she knew, and that's why.
Right.
So that's something to think about, right? For you listening, for any of you who may have lost a loved one or someone you're close to, or maybe someone you're not so close to, but you question those things, please know they never really leave us.
Oh, yeah, they don't.
They don't. And you just need to talk about them with someone or call them in and have a conversation with them and just go by how you feel, because that's how spirit speaks to us.
Yes.
It's by how you feel.
Because I know for your mother, I don't know if it's pennies that she leaves you or something. Like there's just different symbols and different ways they communicate. And in your heart of hearts, Yes.
So I'll leave you with one little fun story.
Okay.
Regarding symbols and past loved ones, right? So my mom, when she was embodied, it was always about picking up pennies. She'll see a penny on the ground. Penny, penny, bring me luck, for I'm the one who picked you up. Like that would be her saying. And then she'd stick the penny in her shoe. And then when she was staying with my sister, there towards the end, she was always saying, Lorraine, do you have a rubber band? I need a rubber band. Do you have a rubber band? Where's there a rubber band? So when my mom passed,
mm-hmm.
she was leaving me trails of money. Because when she was embodied, there was days where I'm driving in a car and she sees a penny in a curb and she wants to open the car door to go get the penny. And I'm yelling at her, no, no, this is not safe. You'll die. Don't do that. So she'll leave me trails of money, and she was leaving my sister trails of rubber bands.
That's funny.
It is. So, your loved one could be doing the same thing. It's just, as you say, you need to be open to that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, again, Cherry, our deepest condolences.
Thank you.
And we thank you for joining us and sharing in this conversation. Bye.
See ya.
Remember, you are bigger than anything that you are going through or anything that is happening around you.